The history of Africa. Africa is the birthplace of humanity. Long before recorded history, millions of years ago, the first humans emerged on this vast and varied continent. The Great Rift Valley, stretching across eastern Africa, became home to early human ancestors. Fossil discoveries in Ethiopia and Tanzania tell a story. Africa is where our species, Homo sapiens, first walked the earth nearly 200,000 years ago. For tens of thousands of years, African communities hunted, gathered, farmed, and built societies suited to their environments. But Africa's history is not just about survival, it is about innovation, resilience, and brilliance. One of the earliest and most famous civilizations rose along the fertile banks of the Nile River, ancient Egypt. From around 3100 BCE, Egyptians built monumental pyramids, developed a complex writing system, and created a government that influenced civilizations for millennia. Yet, Egypt was not alone. South of Egypt, the kingdom of Kush thrived in what is now Sudan. The Kushites built their own pyramids, mastered ironworking, and even ruled over Egypt for nearly a century during the 25th dynasty. Across the continent, other powerful kingdoms emerged. To the east, the kingdom of Axum, located in today's Ethiopia, became one of the great trading empires of the ancient world. By the 4th century CE, Axum was minting its own coins and had officially adopted Christianity, long before many European nations. The famous obelisks of Axum still stand today as silent witnesses to the kingdom's former glory. Meanwhile, in the west, great empires rose across the savannah. The Ghana Empire, beginning around the 6th century CE, grew rich by controlling the trade of gold and salt across the Sahara Desert. Traders traveled in long camel caravans, bringing wealth to cities filled with markets, mosques, and palaces. Ghana was later succeeded by the Mali Empire, led by legendary rulers like Sundiata Keita and Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa, famous for his extravagant pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, was so wealthy that he caused a temporary economic collapse in the cities he visited by distributing too much gold. Yet Mali's true treasure lay in its knowledge. In cities like Timbuktu, scholars studied astronomy, medicine, law, and theology, creating a golden age of African scholarship that left behind thousands of manuscripts still studied today. After Mali declined, the Songhai Empire rose to dominance, ruling a massive territory along the Niger River. Under rulers like Askia Muhammad, Songhai expanded trade networks, built universities, and solidified its place as one of the most powerful states in African history. Farther south, a different kind of greatness was being built. In the forests of West Africa, kingdoms like Benin and Oyo flourished, creating intricate bronze sculptures and vast city walls. In southern Africa, the builders of Great Zimbabwe constructed an astonishing stone city without mortar. The great enclosure of Zimbabwe, with its towering walls, served as the center of a thriving trade network that stretched to the Swahili coast and even beyond to Asia. Africa was never isolated. Along the eastern coast, African merchants built rich Swahili city-states like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar. These cities thrived on Indian Ocean trade, connecting Africa with Arabia, Persia, India, and China. The cultures blended, African, Arab, and Persian influences, creating a unique and vibrant Swahili culture that lives on today. Religion played a major role in shaping African societies. Christianity took root early in Egypt, Nubia, and Ethiopia. Islam arrived peacefully along trade routes in North and West Africa, embraced by rulers who saw its value in connecting them to global trade and scholarship. African versions of Christianity and Islam developed, blending traditional beliefs with the new faiths, creating rich spiritual traditions unique to the continent. But Africa's connections with the wider world also brought tragedy. From the 15th century onward, European explorers and traders arrived on African shores. Seeking gold, ivory, and spices, they soon realized there was even more profit to be made in human lives. The transatlantic slave trade would tear apart African societies, stealing millions of men, women, and children from their homes and scattering them across the Americas. Entire kingdoms participated, whether by choice or under pressure, and Africa's social and political structures were deeply damaged by the centuries of slave raiding and warfare. Then came the brutal era of colonialism. In the late 19th century, European powers met at the Berlin Conference and divided Africa among themselves without consulting a single African leader. Colonization was not just about land, it was about control, exploitation, and domination. Traditional political systems were dismantled. African resources were extracted to fuel European wealth, while Africans were subjected to forced labor, heavy taxation, and racial discrimination. Yet Africa never gave up its fight for dignity and freedom. Across the continent, resistance movements flared. Leaders like Samori Toure in West Africa, Yera Santwe in Ghana, and Menelik II of Ethiopia, who famously defeated an Italian invasion at the Battle of Adwa in 1896, showed that African resistance was fierce and often successful. Ethiopia would remain one of the only African nations to resist colonization completely. By the mid-20th century, the winds of change could not be stopped. Inspired by global movements for human rights and spurred by their own courage, Africans demanded independence. Ghana became the first sub-Saharan country to win freedom from colonial rule in 1957 under Kwame Nkrumah. One by one, other nations followed, from Algeria's bloody struggle against France to Kenya's Mau Mau uprising against British rule. In 1994, South Africa finally threw off the chains of apartheid, electing Nelson Mandela as its first black president in a triumph of the human spirit. Today, Africa is a continent of more than 1.4 billion people, home to diverse cultures, languages, and traditions. It faces challenges: poverty, political instability, the legacy of colonial borders, and the pressures of globalization. But it is also a continent of extraordinary hope and innovation. African artists, scientists, entrepreneurs, and leaders are shaping the future not only of Africa but of the world. The history of Africa is not a story of darkness, as was once told. It is a story of resilience, achievement, and brilliance. It is the story of the first humans and of countless civilizations that contributed to humanity's shared heritage. Africa's past is rich, its present vibrant, and its future bright. It is a history worth knowing, celebrating, and honoring, the story of the beating heart of our world.